All right, let's talk a little bit about what components are. Now, if you're coming from any other framework and you're trying to understand where's the models or the modules or the views or the directives or any of that good stuff, I need you to just put that aside because React is a little bit different in that everything in React is what's called a component. So I'm going to show you just a couple examples of what a component would be, and then we'll get into actually building some of our own. Now, what is a component? A component is a reusable piece of your website. So if you think of your HTML page as built up of a whole bunch of tags like h1 and div and article tag, React sort of takes that a step further and allows you to build your own tags or components as they are. And you can supply those tags a whole bunch of information. So if we take a look at this application right here, we've got this where we have the fish picture. We have an add to order button. When you click that button, it will add it to the actual order. We've got the title. We've got the price. It's formatted nicely. And we've got a description of it. Now, anytime I would like to render this on out, I don't need to copy and paste that code. Let's say I wanted it somewhere else in my application. I don't need to copy and paste that code. I simply just render out what's called a fish component. Now we can look at that by going to our React Dev Tools. Now, if you don't see React Dev Tools, make sure you have it installed first. And second of all, make sure you're actually on a page that has React loaded. Facebook, Instagram are good examples for that, as well as the demo application for catch of the day. So what I like to do to actually get to the component that is here is I like to use inspect element, right click inspect, or use your shortcut. So just get somewhere in this HTML. And this is the HTML that React kicks out for you. This is the HTML that it renders for you. But if you hop on over to your React Dev Tools here, you'll see that it actually brings you out into how React sees it. And you can see all of these things. They look like custom tags, but those are just components inside of React. And you can see that I've got all of these different fish components. Now, anytime that I want to render out this display here, as well as bring along any of the functionality that it has, I simply just need to render out a fish tag and pass it any information that it needs. And in this case, it needs a whole bunch of information about like what's the image, what's the description, et cetera, et cetera. So that is a fish component, and it's a nice tidy little component. And sort of one of the benefits to that, among other things, is that if you have somebody on your team and you want them to work on just a specific component, you can just give them access to that component file where they don't necessarily need to be working on the entire app. This is especially helpful when you're working with designers who need to mock up the HTML and the CSS, and they don't necessarily need to write a ton of JavaScript. So I've got my fish component here. I've got this header component right here. You see that I pass in something with it's called props. We're going to learn all about props, state, and context. We also have an order component here. We've got an inventory component here. If you open those up, you're going to see some further components inside of there. We're going to use animation components to animate the values on in. So anytime you have a piece of your application, it's generally good that we build it into its own little component, and that's going to allow us to have reusable code as well as use React Dev Tools to see where everything is in. Now, if I click on our app components, that's sort of like the parent component here, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff here for routing. You're going to see that we have this thing called state. And if you open that up, these are all of the fish that we have listed in our document here. And you can see that this fish data, if you open fish 1, we have Pacific halibut, and that is then referenced right here. It's referenced in the order as well as it's referenced in the inventory. And if you were then to change this state, and we're going to learn all about how to do that to something like yummy fish, and I hit enter, you'll see that anywhere that state, anywhere that data was referenced, yummy fish, has changed. It's updated here, here, and here. And that's sort of like the huge power behind React, is that we're going to build these components like a fish component and an order component and an inventory component, and they all pull on some data that we have and we pass in. And anytime that data changes, that's no problem, because React is going to figure out where it should then update itself. So I really like to just go into people's websites that have React and see how they've set it up themselves. So the player for this video series here, is actually built in React as well. So if I were to maybe just inspect like one of these video links down here, and these titles might look a little bit different for you because I'm re-recording them right now, and flip on over to the React DevTools, you'll see that I have created a whole bunch of components. These are the video components that I've made. And each video component is going to render out the number, the video, the title, the timestamp here in a nice little displayed span, as well as it carries all of the JavaScript that needs to make it play. So I click one, it's going to update the player. It's going to update the URL bar, and the routing is going to kick in. So if I click on one of them, you'll see that there's some props, there's some context. We're going to see state in some other ones. And if I were then to go to the viewer one, look at my state, you see that I have this videos array, which is all 17 videos or however many videos your current package has. You can see that I can change that to Wes is cool. And again, anywhere that data has then been referenced, like right here, as well as right here, React is just going to update itself anywhere on the page. We don't need to like select the DOM element and update it for ourselves because we've went ahead and created these video components beforehand, and we're going to see how we can infuse that data right into the component. So it's kind of fun to go into different websites. Like Instagram and Facebook are two major users of React. They're the ones that initially built React, and you can just kind of sort of see what they've done here. They're a little bit more complicated on Facebook and Instagram just because they don't use very well named components here. They have like I and R, but you can see like R is something like the source of the actual image, how many likes are associated with it, the caption, and maybe I here is probably all the comments. Let's see here. Yep, they've got an array of all the comments here, so I could like go ahead and change that to cool, and it's going to update the actual comment there. So it's kind of fun to just poke around at all the different components here. Components are reusable pieces of code that we're going to use in our application over and over again, as well as attach data and event listeners like clicking and hovering and scrolling and all that good stuff. So let's actually get to scaffolding out some of our own components that we can build in our Catch of the Day app.